Oh, last week. Now it's sunny. It's too sunny. Too bright. I can't see can't see nothing. All right. Eh. All right. So I was going to make a World War III update, but I thought no, this kind of stands on its own. So check out my hat. There we go. It was one of those things that I watched the Donald Trump. It was about an hour and 15 minutes long, or whatever. Hour and 16 minutes, whatever it was. Conference he did last night. I don't know what this conference, like if it was just okay, we're just going to have a flash conference or whatever. But anyway, he had a conference last night, and I watched it all. It was really good in the sense of entertaining. That's for sure. The man is just so bizarre. Like when he talks to people, it's just like there's kind of a bit of a no bullshit kind of way about it. But I guess I guess that's the businessman side of him or whatever. Where, if you're lying, he calls you out right on the spot. Like, who does that? Like, I mean, think of yourself. Like, I mean, how many times have you been sitting there with one of your buddies or whatever, and they're telling you a bullshit story, but you don't call them out on it? Yeah, no. He just calls everybody out right away. So it just really puts it to the reporters anyway. But it was more than that. There was a lot of things. So I don't know what the concept of because it was just one of my subscribers. You know who you are. Thank you so much, man. Send it to me, and he says, "Hey, Reg, did you check out the Trump?" The Trump press conference is a beauty, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, well, I said, link. So he sends me the link. And I was going to check out the other one with Netanyahu and Putin, or Netanyahu and Trump. I haven't watched that one yet. So everything I'm saying right now is based on the other one. So I might change my opinion after I watch that one. I'm going to watch that one hopefully tonight. It takes a while to do all this stuff, Like I came to the conclusion I put out anywhere between 60 and 90 videos a month. It takes a lot of, that's a lot of work when you consider almost all of them are about an hour long, and then, the hours of research. This is what I'm talking about. Like my work day is about anywhere from 6 to 9 hours, probably always closer to the 9-hour mark. But it's not like it's like I'm breaking my back or anything, so that's okay. But it's a lot of work to follow all this stuff. So I watched it from beginning to end, and he really, really puts the reporters in their place. Kind of. Oh yeah, here comes another one of those winners going to ask me one of those brilliant questions. The thing I was talking about, there's going to be a video coming out a lot later about how he's going to hit the economic reset, and I'm still sticking by that. I think he is getting ready to do that. But I did a whole video on that, so I won't digress too much on it. This I want to focus on who he might be signaling to. If you haven't been following what's been going on in the past week, it's been a very busy week on the Cold War front. It's been extremely busy in the sense of Russian warships, Russian spy ships, Russian fighter jets buzzing, the new missile thing that came out. And again, Obama knew about this missile. Nobody said a word. So we see the media is really being led to kind of destroy the relationship between Russia and the United States. Trump said a few very interesting things. He goes, that warship, one reporter, I think it was a CNN reporter, which he's like, no mercy to that guy. And the fucker doesn't deserve it anyway. Sorry for the language, but I mean, there's such douchebags there. And on the CBC, like one thing Trump said last night was, oh yeah, he says tomorrow the headlines are going to be, oh, Trump was ranting and raving. So they of course, what soundbite do they use? That one, right? But anybody that would have watched that, they would have heard a man that sounds so realistic, so reasonable. I do have my questions on Trump. I do wonder if he is the real deal. But when you watch stuff like that, it's like almost impossible to not believe he is, because nobody's that good of an actor. I mean, he's always in charge. The reporters, he gets to the point, okay, well, I know where they're going to go with this question. Okay, and then let's just get into it. I'm not going to let you draw out the question 8 million different ways to say the same thing. Just, okay, say your point. We know, yes, I've asked, and he explains the same thing 5 times about the Flynn and Pence and their, their connections with Russia and stuff like that. So I think what he's done here is 2 things, and this is very important. Is number one, he's basically goes after the mainstream media to take the wind out of the sails of that plan of building tension between Russia and the United States. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Because anybody that would have watched that are now going to watch the mainstream media. And he says, look, the mainstream media is just ugly. It's horrible. It just doesn't matter what I do. He says, you know, like you guys are you're horrible. You're ugly. That type of thing. He goes, and you guys, he goes, look, if the United States and Russia gets along, that's a good thing. And trust me, that's a good thing. I mean, this man did kind of talk about a nuclear apocalypse very casually. And when people let that sink in, what he was telling you, yeah, people are going to be, whoa, wait a minute here. You know, should the mainstream media be building those tensions between Russia and the United States? I don't think so. So he's done that. He's shown that the mainstream media is trying to create a really nasty tension. Now, the CNN guy, I believe it was a CNN guy, it might have been a Fox guy, but more likely a CNN guy. And he really made an example of that guy, I think. I mean, it's like the third, fourth time. Like, this guy must hate his job so much now. I got to go talk to the president again. This guy embarrasses me all the time, which is kind of entertaining, don't get me wrong. But he's like, okay, Russia created a new missile in the Black Sea. Trump, not good. 4 Russian aircraft buzzed our aircraft or ship in the Black Sea. Trump's response, not good. And then the other one was, we have a spy ship, Russian spy ship, trawler going off our coast. Trump said, not good. And the guys go, well, if it's not good, then what's your stance on Russia? Now, one thing Trump did say is that he's not going to, he goes, I'm not going to tell you about military movements. He goes, and I love the mockery he does. He goes, okay, we're going to, hello, Mosul, we're going to, in 4 months, we're going to invade you. Okay, we're a month away, we're going to be invading you. And then, you know what I mean, like warning the ISIS guys. This is what I've been talking about. And this is what he's been hearing from his generals. I mean, the guys that are probably not neocons that just want war everywhere, like John McCain and Lindsey Graham, who are over there in the Ukraine, well on video talking about, you know, the year of the offensive, like basically fanning the flames of war. These guys they're such horrible people. And what they're doing is really illegal. They're treasonous to their own country, particularly John McCain, arming the ISIS rebels, calling them moderate rebels. I mean, al-Baghdadi, he's freaking arm-locked with al-Baghdadi there, you know, like holding hands almost in pictures. And he's still, you know, he hasn't renounced that guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's treasonous criminal. And he's dangerous because they're, again, trying to stoke up a war, the Zionist faction bankers that are trying to stoke up the war between Russia and the Ukraine. The goal, I believe, was to get Russia to roll tanks into the Ukraine, right up to Transnistria, and then right up to the Polish border, put NATO on full alert, and that was, I think, the goal. And then, you know, get Eastern Europe into a war so that the Russians will wear their troops out fighting the Eastern Europeans. But the Russians aren't stupid, right? So Trump says that's not good. He goes, look, when it comes to that ship, he goes, the only thing that would make the mainstream media happy, so to speak, is if I were to take a missile and take out that ship. And he goes, but, you know, he goes, you know, he says, that's not the right response. He goes, I want to do right by the American people. So doing right by the American people, number one, he's got to drain the swamp. Now, I think this is a counter to the fight back, because remember, he's only got maybe about 60 days max from the making of this video to pull off an economic collapse and set everything up for an economic collapse to go and solve it. I think what he might do is a debt jubilee. It's really the only card he could play. Yes, it will devalue the U.S. currency beyond belief. Maybe you'll do it in stages. Okay, well, we'll write off this much debt per week, and that'll keep the inflation to a minimum, destroy the money supply to a degree. But he's going to have to do austerity somewhere, and that's one thing where his deregulations, he talked about a lot of deregulations. I think there's about 40, some of them coming down the pipe within the week. Some are environmental, some are whatever. But these things are going to really open up the economy. The debate will be whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to get rid of this regulation, that regulation, whatever. We got rid of one of the Obama regulations about disabled people not being allowed to be allowed to buy firearms, that type of thing, and elderly. So they've overturned that. So those things. But there's a lot of things he's like, you know, he goes, the media's out there, he says, we've done a whole bunch of great things and you guys don't even cover it. You know, like, we've done this, and this. And okay, yes, it's true. There's some of the things that Trump is doing that I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great. There's a lot of people that have made promises, yes, we're going to bring factories back, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, create all these jobs. But so far, not a single job has been created on that front. But on other fronts, yes, jobs have been created. So, you know, got to keep fair here. But my big one is what keeps us out of a war. And Trump is talking sensibility. He goes, look, with the mainstream media, he goes, you should be ashamed of yourselves. He goes, I do a phone call with Australia. It's on the news. I do it with Mexico. He goes, and these were, and the Russian one. He goes, the reason why Flynn got fired wasn't because he, divulged information about the sanctions or something like that. He didn't do that. He goes, there's no way to prove, there's no proof of that, and there is no proof. It's all just accusation by the mainstream media. He goes, he got fired because he did something. It was something else he did different, which is kind of good because Trump is willing to fire people. When have you ever seen that in the government? Very rarely. So this means people have to deliver and make good on what Trump wants, or else. And even he says it. He goes, look, my team isn't even fully assembled yet, and look what we've done. So yes, there's a lot of good things. Again, until I watch because I really want to watch the Netanyahu Trump, because that I'm sure will give us a better, clear idea of what the plan with Iran is going to be, because that's my big concern is, will Trump take us to war with Iran? If he takes us to war with Iran, he might as well just go to war with Russia and China, because that's the next stepping, to take out Iran. So regime change, I don't think is going to happen in Iran without a lot of bloodshed, and Israel will not survive regime change. There's no doubt about that, because if the Iranians know they're going to lose everything anyway, if the U.S. is coming in to bomb everything, they're just going to launch every single missile they have at Iran, nuclear or not. The Israelis cannot defend themselves against that. That's what I mean. Like, the Iranians don't even need nukes. I mean, they've got enough missiles. They've got like 1,500 missiles that can reach halfway to Europe. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need, it's like, what can respond faster, the missiles or the U.S. Military? You know what I mean? Israel's screwed if Iran decides to wipe it off the map. Now, Israel can fire back nukes, but at that point, if the Iranians are firing the missiles, I mean, this is a country that hasn't officially attacked anybody in 200 years. Trump calling them the number one, supporters of terrorism, I don't think is genuine. I think that's just more bias, because technically the United States is the number one supporters of terrorism, and so is Israel, so is Saudi Arabia, so is Turkey, because they armed ISIS. This is openly admitted. They armed ISIS. These alphabet agencies like the CIA, they're terrorist organizations. Maybe there's some good people that work there, but they need to start, handing over the people under rule of law, like for the criminality. That's what it is. So that's what people really want Trump to do. But he's not, he's not in a position where he can do that completely. So again, this I think is a chess move to harpoon the, Russia did it, Trump and Russia. He's harpooning that right now. That's what that conference is about. And in fact, apparently his approval rating is up to 55% across the country. Now, again, polls are not reliable, but considering Obama's highest was 45%, Ronald Reagan was 58%, I think Kennedy might have had 72%. I think Ronald Reagan was the highest, and then somebody said, no, it was Kennedy was in like 72, 73% approval rating. Again, don't quote me on that, but something like that. But 55% approval rating of your populace. Harper, I think, made it to 39%. I don't know what Justin Trudeau's at, but I think it's slipping for obvious reasons. I mean, the people, of course you have your people that, they love him, It doesn't matter. This guy could burn babies in front of you, and they would still, he's so dreamy, that Justin Trudeau. Right now, the big thing with Justin Trudeau is all the, Ivanka, they catch a picture where she's looking in his direction. She didn't have that kind of, take me now kind of look, I find. She had more of that kind of, who is this idiot kind of sitting beside me kind of look. I don't know. As a guy, I tend to pick up on it. I know the looks from women, and she's probably, what the fuck did you just say? That's probably what she was doing. So yeah, they try to play it off like that. But yeah, the women do kind of gravitate towards him because he's, he's the same age as me and stuff like that. So he's more youthful and stuff like that. I get that. But it means nothing, like the popularity contest, it means nothing. For Trump, the thing is he's not in it for the popularity contest. So yeah, the man's got a huge ego. There's no doubt about that. But he's into it as a business, like and you keep hearing on the mainstream media, well, you can't run the government like a business. Well, yeah, you kind of have to. You got to fire the people that are incompetent. You've got to promote the people that are excel, and you've got to manage your business. You can't just let it run away. So the austerity, I think, for Trump is going to come through the deregulation. But getting back to what he was saying, he goes, look, right now, he goes, the relationship between Russia and the United States is not good. He goes, it's not good. He goes, and that's been not good for a long time. He goes, I've inherited a mess, a bloody mess. And he goes, the nation, when one reporter asked him, how do you feel about, your influence on dividing the nation, something along that line. He goes, this nation was divided even before Obama. He goes, I inherited a mess, it flourished under Obama, which is true. I mean, Obama was an agitator. But he goes, with Russia, he goes, right now, he says the signaling is that Russia's probably, he goes, he's had 2 good phone calls with Putin. And he goes that right now, Putin is probably thinking that we can't work with the United States. This is dangerous. And he goes, they've got powerful nuclear weapons. We've got powerful nuclear weapons. A nuclear war would be the most unimaginable apocalyptic scenario. We can't go there. And he goes, and a lot of this, and again, Hillary Clinton selling 20% of their uranium to Russia, and that's from uranium one up here in Canada. We should have stopped that sale for ourselves. Like, why the hell would we do that? Again, the Harper deal with the $20 billion in uranium to India. I'm not even for that. You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't be selling. There's certain things we shouldn't be selling outside this country without extreme. To developing countries, absolutely not. We shouldn't be selling uranium, period, to developing countries. Yes, it's money, but think about what can be done with that uranium. It's not worth it. It wouldn't matter if it paid off our entire national debt. I'm not willing to risk that. And when I'm Prime Minister, yeah, trust me, that deal's dead in the water. We'll take the fines. You know what I mean? The other things we shouldn't be doing is sending weapons to Saudi Arabia and the likes. But that type of thing, I digress. So anyway, he's saying that, he doesn't know if he's going to get along with Putin or not. And right now, yes, Putin is probably doing especially after the give Crimea back to the Ukrainians kind of comment. I don't think that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen without a lot of bloodshed. And by bloodshed, I mean nuclear holocaust. The Russians are never giving up the Crimea again. They gave it away in 1954. They're not going to give it away again. And the thing is that the people there had the referendum. Was the referendum rigged or not? It's hard to say, but again, it's not going to happen. We should have, if it wasn't for the United States foreign policy of regime change and getting George Soros and Victoria Nuland over there, George Soros to basically fund neo-Nazis to overthrow Yanukovych. Meanwhile, Poroshenko probably would have won the majority vote across the country, including the Crimea, or at best, the Crimean, even if the Crimea didn't vote for that, at best what would have probably happened is they would have still been a part of the Ukraine. But no, like in Libya, like in Syria, this regime change policy is just a disaster. So getting back to what Trump and Putin said, how am I doing for time here? He's out there and he's saying, look, the warships off our coast, he says, we're going to deal with this stuff. Right now, yes, Putin is doing what you would call saber rattling. He's basically, the warships, you have to look at it this way. First off, he goes, the cruise missile, Trump talks about cruise missiles, that treaty from 1987 that was supposed to be been broken, he goes, look, the Russians been doing this, and Obama's said nothing. So I think, remember, if Trump says he's going to deal with Russia and China from a position of strength only, that means, yes, all the buildup we see in Eastern Europe, which is just astronomical. Like, I think there's more people in Europe right now than there almost was in World War II. Again, it's the biggest buildup since the Cold War. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. Maybe not since World War II, but during World War II, but since World War II, there has not been that much U.S. military activity and NATO activity since the Cold War. Like, it's worse than the Cold War. They haven't seen this before. We haven't seen this before. We are in a Cold War. I mean, if you're waiting for the mainstream media to tell you the truth on that, you're going to be waiting a long time. No, we're in a Cold War. When the Russia has 3 Arctic bases and then now has 28, and the last time those bases were open was under Khrushchev, that tells you you're in a Cold War. When you've got missile drills like you wouldn't believe, missile spending like and this military spending like you wouldn't believe, and daily occurrences of hundreds of excursions of bombers buzzing people's borders on both sides, yeah, that's a Cold War, my friends. And I think Trump knows this. He knows this very well. So how's he going to deal with Russia? Well, 3 weeks in, we see the saber rattle. Okay, now Trump is going to have to respond to this because that's the way the Russians roll. So I think the thing is just the hard line. We don't back down until you back down. So for Russia, we have to look at it from their point of view. if Trump is right, and this makes total sense that Putin is probably looking at this, Putin is signaling that he's willing to work with the United States, but remember just before the election that they had changed their doctrine, that they said, okay, we can no longer work with the United States, so if Trump wins, doesn't win, we're going to war. I think the Russians were very genuine about that, because Hillary Clinton definitely was signaling, we'd be, Russia, cha-cha-cha, we're going to take them down. Russia burnt my toast this morning, blame everything on Russia. And then blame everything on Russia and then try to tie it to Trump. That's what the mainstream media is doing. And it looked like, I think this meeting was to kind of, so that the media can't keep running with the story with Flynn. That Flynn was, a Russian agent or whatever. Right now, everybody's either a Nazi or a Russian agent, according to the left or the mainstream media. So it's, it's the world we live in. Right now I'm a Zionist, Russian, Nazi Jew, racist, bigot, xenophobe, misogynistic, homophobe, white supremacist, Nazi Jew or something. I don't know how it works. I just can't keep up. I guess it's kind of like those 75 genders, but you're 75 meanings of leftist tyrant. Or I have no idea. Whatever. And anyway, so it's kind of like, what do you do, right? So the Russians had said also too that they're going to do tit for tat strikes. So they see a buildup, they're going to buzz your warships. Now, the other thing is where's that warship? It's in the Black Sea, between the coast of Georgia and the coast of the Crimea. And the Russians view Crimea as sovereign Russian territory. So they sent out, and they do this all the time anyway. This is not really new. It'd be the same as if a Russian or a Chinese warship was just outside international waters of the U.S. It's going to be shadowed, it's going to be buzzed. Now, right now, strangely enough, that spy ship, they didn't send out F-16s or F-18s or F-15s to go buzz it, or Dolphin helicopters or or Apaches or whatever. They didn't go buzz this thing because that ship. Okay, although this ship is a routine, it does do this 2 times, 3 times a year, whatever. That itself is normal, and I think Trump knows that. But the timing is kind of okay, and they probably know if you have electronic surveillance ship, there's submarines in there. And I remember Hurricane Sandy, when that Alpha sub or Sierra class sub kind of just showed up on at Norfolk. It's yes, hello comrade of different country. Our submarine microwave has problem. We need to cook our bagels. Can you help us cook our bagels? Can we use your port? And they're like, okay, you have a Russian submarine now in the U.S. port. You can't even make this up. They had some mechanical problems. So during a Soviet submarine washes up Soviet era submarine washes up during a storm. It's yeah, okay, So, and nobody knew it was there. That's the scary part. Nobody knew it was there. The other submarines, that Akula 2, cruising back after 2 months in the Gulf of Mexico. But again, when you know they're there, you're going to be shadowing these things the entire time. They do this with the Chinese Navy. Right now, I wouldn't doubt it if, especially these new Russian submarines, they're probably up and down the U.S. coast. They have a very hard time tracking these things. These things they call them black holes in the water. They haven't figured a way to track these things properly. And with the Navy cuts and cutbacks and all that, and most of the U.S. Navy submarines pretty much dry docked, there's nothing to really track these things. So this is what Trump's looking at. And he sees this warship and he's like, what the media want me to do is basically fire a missile at it and take it out. Mind you, it was in international waters outside the 12-mile coastline, but 12 miles of coastline is nothing for a warship. I mean, any closer than that, it would probably run aground anyway, especially off the Grand Banks. I mean, Grand Banks, man, you want to be at least 75, 100 miles off the Grand Banks during a storm, or you're going to bust the bottom of the spine of the ship. Because of you got shallow waters and high winds. It's like Cape Horn down there in Argentina. That's why the Panama Canal was built, because during a storm you just bottom out the ship on the reefs or whatever. So Trump sees this. Yes, it's not good. He knows these are alerting things. The missile he's not really concerned about, but the other two of the Su-24s, I think it was I can't remember the combination. They said 2 Su-24s came out, said hello about a couple of 100 feet from the deck, maybe 200 feet from the deck or something like that. I was trying to figure the way the article was written. It was kind of like it made it sound like they fired a missile 200 feet from a U.S. Navy ship, which that didn't make sense. So I didn't know what to make of that. I was kind of a bit confused in my last World War III update. But what makes sense is that, yes, these, dangerously close, they pass like 1,000 feet in front of the warship. They call that dangerously close. And that's something traveling at 700 miles an hour. That probably is, considering how fast you can gain that ground. But at 200 feet, I mean, you're basically maybe 2 wingspans on an Su-24. If you're doing a pass at 700 knots or whatever, you're basically 4 or 5 wingtips from taking out an antenna. You know what I mean? So, or if they come in and they turn, they could blow somebody off the deck with the thrust of the engine. They're that close. So there is a danger. But whose waters are you truly in? The Black Sea, yes, okay, same thing. The U.S. warship was in international waters, but the reason why the Russians are buzzing that warship is not because the warship's there. It's because of the tanks and the tons of helicopters that, I forget how many helicopters in Apaches and Abrams tanks and Bradley tanks. We're talking 4,000 troops, throughout Eastern Europe. That's what the Russians are responding to. They're responding to that. So that's the Cold War. Whether you think it's a fair response or not, I don't know. I think it's just going to stay as a stalemate. And there's going to be over 80 NATO drills, maybe more, this year in Eastern Europe. So the Russians are definitely going to respond to that. This is par for the course right now. This has been going on. The craziness started, I think, in 2010, where you could say that was opening the door of the new Cold War. It started with the signing of Barack Obama signing the NDRP. And again, if you've been following my channel that long, don't be afraid to go over some of my older World War III updates, but that type of thing. So how is Trump going to respond to Russia? I think they're still coming up with a plan, and plus, I think he's going to wait till he gets his team in. But the thing is what he's saying is, and I think this was the main purpose of this meeting, is for the Russians. I can imagine Putin sat there listening to this. Putin must listen to Trump all day long. Whatever Trump says, let's see, because, the administration says one thing, and Trump has a lot of enemies within, his enemies are very close to him. This is why I think he's so readily able to either fire people or have people stand down from his administration. Now, this Flynn guy actually sounded like a really good pick. This guy sounded about as anti-neocon as possible, and it looks like the establishment, what they're trying to do is take out the guys that will protect Trump. So Trump has to he's playing a chess game here. So he has to, best way to, again, the bull in the China shop effect seems to work very well for Trump. Well, okay, here I am, I'm going to come out and I'm going to say it straight. Now, there's people out there, like, for example, on my Facebook, that they're anti-Trump for the sake of, like, again, Trump could cure cancer and kiss little babies in front of you, and they're still going to hate him. They hate him because they hate him. They hate him because they're radical leftists, whatever. They hate him because Hillary Clinton didn't win, whatever it is. They just hate him. It wouldn't matter what he did. You get that with any politician. You get that with Obama. And again, I tried to be as fair with Obama as much as possible. My turning point on Obama was in 2010 when I said, okay, now I know this guy is not on the side of the people. At first it was, yes, I can accept that he inherited such a mess from George Bush, but for the first 2 years, after the 2 years, it's like, okay, nothing's reversing. And then 6 years later, nothing is reversed. It's just gotten worse. So I've listened to Obama for, how many Obama speeches did I listen to? I don't know. Like, that's time in my life I'm never going to get back. But I do it because I believe in my channel, right? And I believe in keeping people informed. And I believe in being fair. I do the same thing for Trudeau. Even like Trudeau, I'm pretty sure I got him pretty figured out. He might do some things that I agree with, but the majority of the stuff is just going to, by Trudeau's third year, he's going to have such crises on his hands, it's not funny. Especially if Trump does what he's going to probably do in the next couple of months by possibly triggering an economic collapse so that it fails on Obama's policies, which will then allow the ability to get rid of too big to fail, throw these people in jail. At that point, he could just send out the lynch mobs of people to get these people. There will be nowhere for them to run and hide. They're not going to make it to their bunkers. That type of thing. If he plays the card right. But you have to understand, they're trying to harpoon him, and anybody that can run defense for him, anybody that's competent, they really, like Trump said, he goes, look, I got all my picks pretty much ready to go, but they're not passing them. So people knowing that, okay, that means the people have got to get on the Congress. They've got to get on the people who are standing in the way of Trump's picks, whether you like their picks or not, whatever. But the people have got to get involved. So I think the third thing that Trump is doing, next to signaling to Russia that, no, hang on, we are willing to work with you, don't overreact yet, because he's got people, he's in the swamp he's trying to drain. Not an easy task. And again, it's like a month in, you know what I mean? So I think this was the biggest, first foremost, was a signaling to Putin, but the other thing it was signaling to was the press to, do your job right. Look, if you would work with us, we can improve relations with Russia, but they don't want that. They want the clickbait, they want the ratings, or more importantly, look who owns these medias. They're all Democrat support. They're all the radical left. That's why there's no difference between CNN, CNBC, CBS, or Fox or whatever. It's all owned by the same guy. You know what I mean? That's why the narrative is the same on all of them. It's propaganda at this point. And I think a lot of the reporters are starting to see this. Some of them are not. And one lady asked a question, for example, to Trump about meeting with this Black Caucus. I can't remember what they were called. And he's like, I would love to. The media's out there saying, I don't want to meet with these people. And it's like, no, it's the opposite. I've called twice. Set up a meeting. He's like, yeah, set up the meeting. I'll do it. Really put the feet to the fire of the reporter. And I love stuff like that because that is I have the rules for Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals coming up. It's going to be closer to the end of the month, but when you see it, but this is one of the things: hold people to their own standards. They can't live up to it. And she's like, "Well, I can't. I'm not going to do it." He goes, "Yeah, no, that's it." And just bang, signaling to them. Okay, he goes, "Look," he says, "I went twice. I called twice, but it's like they couldn't do it because the optics were bad on it. Because I guess Black Lives Matter or whatever, that type of thing, holding them back." But he's like, "Here's the invitation. So ball's in their court. Bang, live up to your own standard." You know what I mean? He's not willing to work with us. No, he wants us to call him. Crap. You know what I mean? That's bull in a china shop Trump, right? That's okay. I called you bullshit right there. But he says, very good question. And what I do like what Trump does is when they are good questions, and he goes, look, if it's bad PR or whatever, he goes, I don't care about that as long as it's true. And I'm the same way. Like, I don't care if you slander somebody or rake them over the coals. Just make sure it's true. And yeah, like that. That's the no bullshit approach. And I think most human beings agree with this. And I think that's why a lot of the people on the radical left can't understand what's going on in the world. It's just because people don't live the majority of people don't live in a politically correct mindset. And the news is so artificially over the top, virtue signaling, leftist, BS that people just don't want it anymore worldwide. This is why alternative medias are flourishing. Now, the other thing he's doing is really running the fake news. Like the mainstream media now, like they can't even turn fake news on him because it was their thing. It's like, well, he's accusing us of fake news again. Whatever. Okay, so it has no meaning now. Both sides are acknowledging that fake news means nothing. It's like calling somebody a Nazi. It's like calling somebody this or that. And challenging all that. Now, I find Trump does spend too much time challenging the press and stuff like that, but I do understand it needs to be done to a degree. But the main thing here is he's signaling to Putin that don't worry about it, we are ready to respond. Now, the warship, when Trump said not good, he also added, once again, that a nuclear conflict between Russia and China and the United States would not be a good idea. And he also talked about how military stuff, he goes, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing, it'll ruin the surprise. Now, there's good and bad in this. From the bad side is you don't know what they're really up to. They've, unlike George Bush and Barack Obama, who worked overtly, now they've gone covert again. So we might not find out about, unless we get whistleblowers, we might not find out about bad military setups and stuff like that. So that there's that, it goes dark. But on the other hand, you're not letting the people know what the plan is ahead of time that you're trying to defeat. He goes, basically, I'm not going to tell you I'm coming for the military moves. So, and he goes, you guys are going to get sick of asking because I'm just not going to answer it. But he goes, look, he's basically also acknowledging that there's moles in the system, in the spy agency. They're basically these people, yes, they are kind of treasonous. You get an Edward Snowden. Okay, fine. That's a guy who did the right thing. But the thing is it's to the point where everything's just leaking. Like I said, he goes, I make a call to Mexico. I hear about it on the news. I'm hearing about it on the news before I'm even off the phone, so to speak. I call the Australian Prime Minister. He goes, and again, it's all over the place. It's leaked. And he goes, what happens? He goes, he says that's not good. He goes, And he says, shame on the press for doing that. He goes, what happens if I'm in serious negotiations, say like on North Korea? He goes, we can't have this. So I think that's also signaling to the intelligence community who, again, seem to be wanting, the intelligence communities were kind of running the states for a while, too, or what you call the deep state. I think he's signaling to them as well that, you know what, we're going to find you. We're going to find whoever you are. We're going to expose you for who you are. And I think there's going to be a lot of that won't only just drain the swamp, but it'll also get rid of a lot of the propaganda. It'll get rid of a lot of things. And I think where he needs to start for that stuff is John McCain and Lindsey Graham, because these guys are very deep state. Yes, they need to go after George Soros, Henry Kissinger, and Zbigniew Brzezinski. There's no doubt about that, and Rothschilds and Rockefellers. But the enablers and the intelligence would be people like Lindsey Graham and stuff like that. And it's going to be tricky because, again, you're trying to find a mole at this point, right? And at this point, there could be hundreds of them. So, that's the task Trump has at hand. So how he's going to flush these people out, I don't know. So I think if we look at chess moves as block, attack, retreat, the reason why you didn't probably see warships buzzing this ship going wherever it was going, probably Venezuela or Cuba, Russian surveillance ship, because obviously the Russians know that a surveillance ship is going to provoke the United States. So yeah, those things could spy on things hundreds of miles inland. These things could, they got big golf ball-like domes on the top of them. They pick up, I think it was, the ship was SSV 185 or 165. So you can go look at what it's capable of, if that's the right ship. I think that was the ship, that's the Russian ship. And it's basically an electronic warfare ship. So if the Americans would have sent out F-16s or F-18s or F-15s or whatever to go, or P-3 Orion out there to go buzz this electronic warfare ship, or the U.S. Coast Guard or whatever, to shadow it, that's escalation. But Trump's action, block, attack, retreat, like chess. Well, right now, basically, it's not a retreat, it's a block. Because it's signaling to the Russians, no, let your ship go. Let your ship go. That we're not intimidated by your ship. Now, of course, the media spin is, oh, Trump is weak, and that's going to be the media spin because you didn't do nothing. No, and like Trump said, you want me to fire missiles at that won't work out well for us. No, that's actually a very clever move. That bounces the ball right into the Russian court. Here's what I mean. And this is something that I've been waiting for, to see when Trump was going to bounce the tennis ball back into Putin's courtyard. Remember, Putin has had the reign of being able to make the U.S. look bad for the past 8 years, no problem, by just simply telling the truth. RT's been a great propaganda machine for them in that sense. Now, telling the truth is telling the truth, so it makes the U.S. foreign policies look bad, it does this, it does that, whatever. And Russia's had the upper hand there. It's made Putin look great. Now, here's something Putin has to watch out for. This is the bluff right here. The warship in the Black Sea, you sent out 4 aircraft to buzz that ship, 2 Su-24s, yes, it's off your coast, okay, then an IL-38, I believe, to buzz it, and then about an hour or so later you sent out another Su-24 to buzz it. We just let your ship go by. We respected that it was in international waters. What are you going to do the next time? You see what I mean? Trump has just one up Putin. It's like, and it's not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's an extreme sign of strength. That, okay, yeah, you got your warship there, but we still got 1,800 tanks or 2,500 tanks going into Eastern Europe and 4,000, gazillion troops there. Your warship doesn't mean anything to us. That type of thing. So that brilliant play by Trump. On the warship buzzing. Now, the reason why. The thing is, and I mean, if you follow my channel, you say, Rich, yeah, but you've been talking about Su-24s buzzing U.S. warships in the Black Sea for how many years now? You're correct. You're correct. But now it's different. Now it's different. The game is about to change. And again, this will be a good thing for humanity, because if this means then Putin has to play, the next time there's a warship it's going to start making Putin look bad if every time they do something, the U.S. doesn't respond, basically ignores them, then that'll because it's a de-escalation on one side. It's actually a show of strength, believe it or not. It's a very, very brilliant tactic if that's what Trump is doing, is basically make the Russians overreact, make them over-respond. Okay, we'll fly our P-3 Orion outside here, and they'll send out, say, 2 Su-27s or 2 Su-30s to go track the P-3 Orion. So people say, wow, the U.S. is provoking. But then when the Russians send out their Tu-160s or their, Tu-95s, they won't scramble jets to go and meet it. It's like, so that signals the Russians like, well, why do you respond to our planes when we don't respond to your planes? You know what I mean? Mind you, they'll have airplanes sitting on standby ready, if it comes into, but wait till they cross the line into your airspace. You know what I mean? That would be a brilliant tactic if Trump plays it like that. It'd be, yeah, but then the Russians could come in. They're not going to come in. If the Russians were going to fire cruise missiles or nukes at us, they would have done it already. They've been more than provoked to do this. If you follow this channel, you know what I'm talking about. No, the Russians, that's how you call the Russians bluff, is you make them overreact. But you're still at a position of strength, so it's kind of a strange thing. Is the idea is to provoke a reaction, and then the reaction to their reaction is no action at all. It's a block. Means why do the Russians keep bringing, Tupolev bears to our border? Whatever. So that could be the new tactic. We'll have to watch and see. Mind you, it's still dangerous. I mean, we're still in a Cold War, so it's still dangerous. So I think that the idea for Trump is what he has to do is bounce the ball back into the court of the Russians so that it puts the Russians to make the decisions. And how they decide will put world optics on them. And that's what, again, that's going to change the game. And I think this is why you might see the one-upmanship of do-gooder between Putin and Trump. Oh, well, okay, you guys are doing that, and then 3 years later, okay, well, Russia's going to dismantle some of its nukes. Oh, well, we're going to dismantle 10 nukes to your one nuke. Okay, well, I know it's wishful thinking, but it would be lovely if that could be the one-upmanship, because Putin can't lose optics here, and Trump can make him lose optics. This is why I think Putin keeps coming out with praises of Trump and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I mean, what they do, on the face value versus what they do behind the scenes is two different things. And the thing is that you got two extremely powerful men. What they really need to do for world optics is joint operations in Syria to take out ISIS. They have to do that. That, I think, sets the tone for the world, just to be able to breathe a little bit more. But I think we're a long way from that. I think that's maybe 6 years away before we see something like that. But with the speed Trump is working at, who knows? And if he can actually get his entire cabinet into play, who knows? And again, if he can weed out the people that are not effective, who knows? But so far, again, I still don't know what to make of Trump. My fear is what Trump's stance is, more on Iran than anything. I've been saying that from day one. How's he going to deal with Iran? I don't know. But I think the only thing we can really look at is, because the things are going to be going covert, so it's going to be hard to find out what the U.S. is doing to a degree. So we're really only going to be able to kind of know after the fact who did what, when, and whatever, and we're only going to probably get a slice of what actually happened. So it's going to be very tough to figure out what Trump's plan is if he's going to go covert, which you could say would be good to a degree and bad on other things. Because, again, we still don't know if the new boss is the same as the old boss, or worse, or better. I still have a hunch Trump is the good guy, but the system he's in is not good. I mean, an honest guy running a corrupt system is still, it's like a wolf, it's like a sheep being surrounded by wolves, right? So I think that was some of what they're destroying the narrative of, Trump and Russia. So Trump has basically destroyed the fake news narrative to an unbelievable degree, to the point of embarrassment of the mainstream media. I mean, there's a lot of media there that I think were just there to film the media getting butchered by Trump. And he like every conference, he owns it. There were some actually, and what I like what Trump did, like one lady asked a question on policy or whatever, And he goes, good question, fair question, fair question. And I like that, and that's the way I would treat it too. It's like, okay, well, and then there's another guy, the Jewish guy that got up, well, we're worried about anti-Semitism, and he just cut him off. He's like, oh, no. He goes, and I'm pretty sure if he goes, nobody's more pro-Israel than me, believe me. And I'm like, and that I can believe, because, his daughter's married to a Jew, his grandkids are half Jewish, this guy's surrounded by Jews, this guy loves Israel. You could tell, that's my fear, is that he loves Israel too much. That's why I'm going to have to watch and see how he is with King Bibi there. That's my worry. My worry is always about, because I know who starts all these wars in the Middle East at the end of the day. U.S. foreign policy is Israeli foreign policy for the Greater Israel Project. That's why we have what's going on in the Middle East. And, the Greater Israel Project, most people need to research that. Now, that said, if Trump does become a little bit more of a peacemaker and whatever, okay, we can overlook that. But the fact that he's surrounded by 9 Goldman Sachs bankers and Zionist neocons all around him, that does cause for worry. But this also separates Trump from his cabinet. You know what I mean? It's like, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm signaling to do, this is what I'm going to do. And then if we see his guys not doing with that, and you see them get fired or step down or whatever, like Trump is basically signaling that you have to be on board with me, not the other way around. So that said, I don't know what the next tactic is, because right now you can tell they're going after the people that he wants that will actually be good for, like, basically, the anti-establishment types and be good. There are going to be issues, for example, environmental laws and stuff like that. I'm not what you would call a hardcore tree hugger, but I'm also, don't rip every resource out of the ground just for the sake of ripping every resource out of the ground. I do believe in a balanced economy, and I do believe in some regulation. But I understand what Trump might be doing is removing the regulation, so whenever the economy does collapse, hit the reset button, economy collapses, let the banks go, bang, there you go. Capitalism run amok, you know what I mean? Because the regulations won't be there. And his regulation, and I wish we'd do this in Canada, for every one regulation people bring in, they have to get rid of 2 old ones. That's very cool. Like, again, if people would spend the time to listen to his platform, that's why I think he keeps going up in popularity. Because I'm also starting to notice there are some leftists that are starting to swing, maybe not pro-Trump, but more give him a fair shake. Okay, well, let's wait and see what he does. And with Trump, that's all we can do is wait and see what he does, because of the system he's in. So the other people he's signaling to is the public. Support me. Back me. These people are lying to you. Come to me. Listen to me. Don't listen to them. Hold my feet to the fire. Fine. But, again, and I think with Trump, if I was ever to get a chance to, ask him tough questions, of course I would put his feet to the fire. I would do this to anybody. Trudeau, if I ever get the chance to talk to him face, I'd love it if he came to my little town. I'd have a ton of questions for him. Even if I could only get one in, the first one would be the mass immigration issue. Second would be probably, get rid of Bill 68. But there's so many things. But, do I talk to him about CETA, Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, Agenda 2030? Is George Soros really running the country? Like, there's just so many questions I would have for this guy. No, clear this up. I want to hold your feet to the fire. I want to hear you say something, quote it, word for word, and then 4 months later come back at you with it. That's what I want to do. The same thing I want to do with Trump. And I think I've been fairly fair with Trump. I want to believe he's the good guy, but I also understand that it's not a black or white that he's going to be this shining Superman superhero and he's going to fix everything. Anybody that believes that kind of utopianism is always going to be let down. That, this is our guy, he's going to do it. No, you're going to get wins, you're going to get losses. And I'm thinking Trump is the most gray area president I've ever seen, where there are things I agree with him with. The biggest one is keep us out of war, sir. If you can keep us out of war, you're going to save the planet. If you can mend relations between Russia and the United States, and you got to understand, the Russians they got their problems too. They've got a rigged system. They've got neocons there. They've got. That's kind of where the neocons kind of came from originally. If you track it back far enough, almost all the radical left stuff you see in the United States right now was communism and Bolshevism and stuff like that from Russia back then. Look at Saul Alinsky. He was a Russian Jew. You know what I mean? Those type of people. They always track back to that faction. That faction that moved around. Zionism goes back to 1666, I believe. But they got from 1666. Then they got into Russia and Poland, and then they went everywhere else and that type of thing. And they really flourished under the late 1800s. Then you got your Rothschilds, your Rockefellers, which are possibly descendants of Lard the Impaler or Dracula. And it goes, and then you get, that's where draconian laws come from and stuff like that. And these people, Rothschilds, Rockefeller, for the past 70 years have really been putting a push, although they've been around a lot longer, maybe about 120, 150 years, setting up the shitbag that we see today. And the thing is it's everywhere. Like it's the entire system. And I've talked about the world being like, the world's kind of a stage in the sense that you have to look at the world divided into two empires. The transatlantic Anglo-American Empire, which is the petrodollar, Canada, the United States, Europe, versus the Eurasian Pacific Empire, which is Russia, China, India, Iran, BRICS nations, etc., etc. And they're fighting for hegemony. So there's that aspect. And then you have to understand on the Anglo-American Empire, that bloody chair, the New World Order that wants to sit in that bloody chair. These world elites want to sit in that chair. And near the end, once they've got control of almost everything, so another guy brought this out on SGT report, excellent point, that once these psychopaths get almost to the end game, then it's like they'll not start, they eat their own. They start knocking each other off because they're afraid that, because they all want to sit in that one bloody chair at the top, that they start knocking each other off and then they fail. Which is good. The problem is how many people die when these people fail. So this is what Trump has to really, truly deal with. I would love to sit down and have a conversation, an hour, at least even a 10-minute conversation with the man. An hour-long conversation with the man would be awesome. And then I could say, sir, this is what you need to do. Hear me out. You can bash me and call me fake news or whatever after. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire on this, 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 and this. Drain the swamp. That is your number one priority. Drain that swamp. Start with George Soros, Henry Kissinger, Zygmunt Brzezinski, Rothschilds, Rockefellers. Get rid of too big to fail. Bring in your Glass-Steagall. It doesn't matter what order you do it, but that should be your end goal. Put in the Clintons, Bushes, Blairs, Obamas, all them. They need to go to jail. I understand you're outnumbered. The people will back you if they see a signal. You put the chrome bracelets on Hillary Clinton in the next 6 weeks, the public will probably do just about anything for you. But you need to do that. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation. Hi, welcome, dog. It was all cloudy all last week. Now sunny. It's too sunny. Too bright. I can't see can't see nothing. All right. All right. So I was going to make a World War III update, but I thought, no, this kind of stands on its own. So check out my hat. There we go. It was one of those things that. I watched the Donald Trump, it was about an hour and 15 minutes long or whatever, hour and 16 minutes, whatever it was. Conference he did last night. I don't know what this conference, like if it was just, okay, we're just going to have a flash conference or whatever. But anyway, he had a conference last night. And I watched it all. It was really good. Really good in the sense of entertaining, that's for sure. The man is just so bizarre. Like, when he talks to people, it's just like, there's kind of a bit of a no bullshit kind of, kind of way about it. But I guess, I guess that's the businessman side of him or whatever. Where, if you're lying, he calls you out right on the spot. Like, who does that? Like, I mean, think of yourself. Like, I mean, how many times have you been sitting there with one of your buddies or whatever, and they're telling you a bullshit story, but you don't call them out on it? Yeah, no, he just calls everybody out right away. So it just really puts it to the reporters anyway. But it was more than that. There was a lot of things. So I don't know what the concept of because it was just one of my subscribers, and you know who you are. Thank you so much, man. Send it to me, and he said, "Hey, Reg, did you check out the Trump, the Trump press conference? It's a beauty, you know what I mean?" So I'm like, okay, well, I said link. So he sends me the link, and I was going to check out the other one with Netanyahu and Putin, or Netanyahu and Trump. I haven't watched that one yet. So everything I'm saying right now is based on the other one, so I might change my opinion after I watch that one. I'm going to watch that one hopefully tonight. It takes a while to do all this stuff, Like I came to the conclusion I put out anywhere between 60 and 90 videos a month. It takes a lot of, that's a lot of work when you consider almost all of them are about an hour long, and then, the hours of research. This is what I'm talking about. Like my work day is about anywhere from 6 to 9 hours, probably always closer to the 9-hour mark. But it's not like it's like I'm breaking my back or anything, so that's okay. But it's a lot of work to follow all this stuff. So I watched it from beginning to end, and he really, really puts the reporters in their place. Kind of, oh yeah, here comes another one of those winners going to ask me one of those brilliant questions. The thing I was talking about, there's going to be a video coming out a lot later about how he's going to hit the economic reset. And I'm still sticking by that. I think he is getting ready to do that. But I did a whole video on that, so I won't digress too much on it. This time I want to focus on who he might be signaling to. If you haven't been following what's been going on in the past week, it's been a very busy week on the Cold War front. It's been extremely busy in the sense of Russian warships, Russian spy ships, Russian fighter jets buzzing, the new missile thing that came out. And again, Obama knew about this missile. Nobody said a word. So we see the media is really being led to kind of destroy the relationship between Russia and the United States. Trump said a few very interesting things. He goes, that warship, one reporter, I think it was a CNN reporter, which he's like, no mercy to that guy. And the fucker doesn't deserve it anyway. Sorry for the language, but I mean, there's such douchebags there. Like, and on the CBC, like one thing Trump said last night was, oh yeah, he says tomorrow the headlines are going to be, oh, Trump was ranting and raving. So they of course, what soundbite do they use? That one, right? But anybody that would have watched that, they would have heard a man that sounds so realistic, so reasonable. I do have my questions on Trump. I do wonder if he is the real deal. But when you watch stuff like that, it's like almost impossible to not believe he is, because nobody's that good of an actor. I mean, like he's always in charge. Like the reporters, he gets to the point, okay, well, I know where they're going to go with this question. Okay, and then let's just get into it. Like I'm not going to let you draw out the question like 8 million different ways to say the same thing. Just, okay, say your point. We know, yes, I've asked, and he explains the same thing 5 times about the Flynn and Pence and their, their connections with Russia and stuff like that. So I think what he's done here is 2 things, and this is very important. Is number one, he's basically goes after the mainstream media to take the wind out of the sails of that plan of building tension between Russia and the United States. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Because anybody that would have watched that are now going to watch the mainstream media. And he says, look, the mainstream media is just ugly. It's horrible. It just doesn't matter what I do. He says, like, you guys are you're horrible. You're ugly. That type of thing. He goes, and you guys, he goes, look, if the United States and Russia gets along, that's a good thing. And trust me, that's a good thing. I mean, this man did kind of talk about a nuclear apocalypse very casually. And when people let that sink in, what he was telling you, yeah, people are going to be, whoa, wait a minute here. Should the mainstream media be building those tensions between Russia and the United States? I don't think so. So he's done that. He's shown that the mainstream media is trying to create a really nasty tension. Now, the CNN guy, I believe it was the CNN guy, it might have been a Fox guy, but more likely a CNN guy. And he really made an example of that guy, I think. I mean, it's like the 3rd, 4th time. Like, this guy must hate his job so much. I got to go talk to the president again. This guy embarrasses me all the time, which is kind of entertaining, don't get me wrong. But he's like, okay, Russia created a new missile in the Black Sea. Trump, not good. 4 Russian aircraft buzzed our aircraft or ship in the Black Sea. Trump's response, not good. And then the other one was, we have a spy ship, Russian spy ship trawler going off our coast. Trump said, not good. And the guys go, well, if it's not good, then what's your stance on Russia? Now, one thing Trump did say is that he's not going to. He goes, I'm not going to tell you about military movements. He goes, and I love the mockery he does. He goes, okay, we're going to, hello, Mosul, we're going to, in 4 months, we're going to invade you. Okay, we're a month away, we're going to be invading you. And then, you know what I mean, like warning the ISIS guys. This is what I've been talking about. And this is what he's been hearing from his generals. I mean, the guys that are probably not neocons that just want war everywhere, like John McCain and Lindsey Graham, who are over there in the Ukraine, well on video talking about, the year of the offensive, like basically fanning the flames of war. These guys they're such horrible people. And what they're doing is really illegal. They're treasonous to their own country, particularly John McCain, arming the ISIS rebels, calling them moderate rebels. I mean, al-Baghdadi, he's freaking arm-locked with al-Baghdadi there, like holding hands almost in pictures. And he's still, he hasn't renounced that guy. You know what I mean? Like he's treasonous criminal, and he's dangerous because again, trying to stoke up a war. The Zionist faction bankers